Diana Shepard wiped sweat from her forehead as she studied the unusual plant sample in her makeshift lab. The small research station, tucked deep in the Amazon rainforest, had been her home for the past 3 months. Rain pattered on the metal roof as she carefully documented her findings. The plant showed remarkable resilience to changing conditions, something that might help humanity adapt crops to the increasingly unpredictable climate. A sudden silence caught her attention. The constant buzz of insects and calls of birds had stopped. Diana looked up from her microscope and stepped outside. The afternoon sky had darkened unnaturally. She checked her watch. 2:17 p.m. Too early for sunset. Her satellite phone rang. It was her research partner, Jack Peters, calling from their supply outpost 10 miles away. "Diana, are you seeing this? Turn on the emergency radio now." She rushed back inside and switched on the radio. Panicked voices filled the small room. Massive ships had appeared over major cities worldwide. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, all reported the same thing. Enormous dark vessels hovering silently in the sky. "This has to be a joke," Diana whispered, but the fear in the broadcasters' voices was real. The radio crackled with an unfamiliar sound. A deep, rumbling voice spoke in a language no human had ever heard. After a pause, the same voice returned, now speaking in heavily accented English. "People of Earth, we are the Zithran Empire, rulers of 70% of known space. Your planet is now under our control. Resistance is unnecessary and will result in punishment. Your leaders have 24 hours to surrender." Diana's hands trembled as she tried calling Jack again. No answer. She gathered her research notes and loaded them onto a small hard drive. Whatever was happening, her work might still be important. The ground shook as something large descended through the canopy. Diana peered through the window and saw a vessel much smaller than those reported in the cities, but still bigger than any human aircraft. It landed in the small clearing beside her station. She didn't hesitate. Grabbing her backpack with emergency supplies, the hard drive, and her satellite phone, Diana slipped out the back door and into the dense forest. Years of fieldwork had taught her how to move quietly through the undergrowth. She had only gone 50 yards when strange lights swept through the trees. Voices called out in that alien language. They weren't just landing randomly. They were looking for her specifically. But how did they know about her? Diana crouched behind a massive tree trunk as 4 figures emerged into view. They weren't human. Tall, with grayish-blue skin and 4 arms, they moved with surprising grace through the difficult terrain. They carried devices that looked like weapons. One of them held up something that projected Diana's image in the air, a photo from her university profile. They were hunting her. They knew who she was. Her mind raced. Her research was just basic xenobiology, the study of how life might adapt to extreme conditions, nothing that would threaten an advanced civilization. Unless they saw it as a threat to something they were planning. Diana crawled backward slowly, planning to circle around to the river where she kept a small canoe. If she could reach it, she might escape downstream. A twig snapped under her hand. The aliens turned instantly, pointing their devices toward her hiding spot. "Do not move, human Diana Shepard," one of them said in that same accented English. "You will accompany us, or we will destroy this entire region." Diana stood slowly, hands raised. 5 more aliens appeared behind her, cutting off any escape route. "Why me?" she asked, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. The alien who had spoken tilted its head. "Your research makes you valuable. The Empire requires your knowledge." Diana looked around at the beautiful forest that had been her home and workplace. She thought about Jack and her other colleagues, hoping they were safe. Then she straightened her back and faced her captors. "I will go with you," she said calmly, "but I want to know why my work matters to you." The aliens exchanged looks. One seemed surprised by her composed response. "You will learn soon enough," the leader said. "The Empire does not explain itself to specimens." Two of them approached and placed a device on her wrist that tightened like a bracelet. They led Diana back to their ship, unaware that her outward calm masked a mind already analyzing, observing, and planning. The inside of the alien ship was cold and smelled like metal and something Diana couldn't name. The aliens, Zithrans, she reminded herself, led her through curved hallways with strange blue lighting. Other Zithrans stopped to stare at her as she walked past. Diana noticed they had different markings on their skin. Some type of rank system, she guessed. After many turns, they stopped at a round door that slid open silently. The lead Zithran pushed Diana inside with one of its lower arms. "Wait here. Admiral Vextor will see you soon." The door closed, leaving Diana alone in what appeared to be a holding cell. The room was a perfect circle with no visible furniture. The walls glowed with a soft light. Diana walked around, examining everything carefully. When she touched the wall, it felt both solid and slightly giving, like firm rubber. Without warning, the floor beneath her feet turned from solid to something like quicksand. Diana quickly spread her weight by lying flat, a technique she had learned during survival training in swamps. The floor solidified again after a minute. "Interesting," she said aloud, realizing this was probably a test. Next, the temperature dropped rapidly. Frost formed on her eyebrows and the walls. Diana unzipped her field jacket and pulled it close around her, covering her hands and breathing warm air into the collar. Basic cold weather survival. Again, after watching her response, the room returned to normal. The gravity increased, making Diana feel twice her weight. She sat down calmly and waited. When that test ended, the gravity decreased until she began to float. Diana used her hands to push off the walls and control her movement, like swimmers do underwater. After several more environmental changes, the door finally opened. A tall Zithran entered, wearing elaborate armor with glowing symbols. Unlike the others, this one had red markings across all four arms. "I am Admiral Vextor," the Zithran announced, "commander of the Imperial fleet and conqueror of Earth." Diana stood straight and looked directly at him. "Diana Shepard, xenobiologist." The Admiral circled her slowly. "Curious. Our tests usually cause extreme distress in new specimens. You adapted quickly." "I study how organisms survive extreme conditions," Diana explained simply. "I've experienced many environments in my work." Vextor made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "Your species is stubborn. Most planets surrender immediately upon our arrival. Your leaders still resist despite our demonstrations of power." "What demonstrations?" Diana asked, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the room temperature. "We removed a small island nation from your ocean as an example. Still, they refused to submit." Diana fought to keep her expression neutral. Millions of people gone. The thought was overwhelming. But showing fear now would give this creature satisfaction. "What do you want from me specifically?" she asked. "Your research has implications. You study how life adapts to changing conditions. This knowledge could help species resist our bioweapons. The Empire cannot allow such research to continue." Diana processed this information carefully, so her work was seen as a threat to their weapons. That was valuable knowledge. Vextor pressed a button on his armor. A screen appeared in the air showing Earth from space. Several red dots marked locations around the planet. "These are your major research centers. They will be destroyed next if your leaders continue to resist. You will help us understand how to counter human adaptability." "And if I refuse?" Diana asked. The Admiral's four eyes narrowed. "Then we will extract the information directly from your brain. The process is not survivable." Diana nodded slowly. "I see. And if I cooperate, you will live as a research subject. Your knowledge will serve the Empire." Diana appeared to consider this, though her mind was already working on how to use this situation to her advantage. Every moment she kept the Admiral talking was another moment to gather intelligence about these aliens. I need time to think about your offer, she said. Vextor seemed surprised by her calm response. He had expected begging or terror. The lack of fear from this human female was unsettling. You have until we reach the command ship, he said before turning to leave. Study her responses to all environmental variables. He ordered the guards outside. I want to know why she doesn't break like the others. As the door closed, Diana sat down in the center of the room. She began mentally cataloging everything she had learned about Zithran physiology, technology, and behavior. If humans were going to survive this invasion, every piece of information would be critical. And if the Admiral thought she would cooperate in destroying her own world, he had badly misjudged human nature. Diana Shepard had never been easy to intimidate, and she wasn't about to start now. 3 days passed in the testing chamber before Diana was moved to the main ship. Guards came for her while she was sleeping and placed her in a transport pod. When the pod opened, she found herself in a much larger room with actual furniture, a sleeping platform, a small table, and something that might be a chair. A different type of Zithran waited for her. This one was smaller than the soldiers, with lighter blue skin and no armor. It wore a simple outfit with fewer markings. I am Krell, it said. I will monitor you during your stay. Diana nodded. Thank you, Krell. I'm Diana. The Zithran seemed surprised by her polite response. You should rest. The Admiral will begin interrogation tomorrow. After Krell left, Diana examined her new cell. Unlike the testing chamber, this room had a small window showing the vastness of space. Earth was no longer visible. Diana wondered how far they had traveled while she slept. The next morning, guards escorted her to a large chamber where Admiral Vextor waited with several other Zithrans in what looked like lab coats. The specimen is prepared for questioning, one of them said. Vextor stepped forward. Human, tell us about your research on adaptive biology. Diana crossed her arms. My name is Diana Shepard, not human or specimen, and I need to know what happened to my planet before I tell you anything. The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Your leaders continue to resist, despite our destruction of 2 major military bases. Humans are either very brave or very stupid. Perhaps we just value freedom. Diana replied calmly. This earned her a painful shock from a device one of the scientists pointed at her. Diana gasped but remained standing. Tell us how humans adapt so quickly to environmental changes, Vextor demanded. It's basic evolution, Diana said after catching her breath. Nothing special. Another shock, stronger this time. Diana fell to one knee but looked up defiantly. Our studies show your species has unusual neuroplasticity, the Admiral continued. Your brains form new connections rapidly when faced with challenges. Explain this. Diana slowly stood up again. I don't know the exact mechanism. I'm a field researcher, not a neurologist. This time they used a different device that caused intense pain throughout her body. Diana bit her lip to keep from screaming. When it stopped, she was on the floor, breathing hard. Impressive pain tolerance, one scientist noted. Most specimens beg for mercy after the first application. The interrogation continued for hours. They used various pain devices and even a machine they called a fear amplifier that was supposed to trigger terror responses. Diana endured it all, sometimes giving small bits of information that weren't actually helpful, just to make them think she was breaking. When they finally returned her to her cell, Diana collapsed on the sleeping platform. Every muscle ached. But despite the pain, her mind remained sharp. During the interrogation, she had noticed several important things. The scientists' discussions revealed vulnerabilities in Zithran physiology. Their equipment had specific operating procedures, and most importantly, they seemed genuinely confused by her continued resistance. Krell entered with something that resembled food and water. You should have answered their questions, the Zithran said quietly. No one resists the Admiral's interrogation for long. Diana took a small sip of water. Why do you serve them, Krell? You're different from the others. Krell shifted uncomfortably. I am lowercased. Service is my purpose. But does that make you happy? The question clearly confused Krell. Happiness is not relevant. The Empire assigns roles based on birth caste. On Earth, we choose our own paths, Diana explained. People can change their status through hard work and learning. Such disorder would collapse society, Krell said, but sounded uncertain. Or make it stronger through diversity of thought, Diana suggested. Krell left quickly after that, seeming troubled by the conversation. Diana smiled slightly despite her pain. Seeds of doubt were powerful weapons, and she had just planted one. That night, as Diana tried to sleep, Admiral Vextor watched her through monitoring devices. He turned to his chief scientist with concern. Why isn't she afraid? We've used methods that break even the strongest warriors from conquered worlds. Unknown. Admiral. Her brain scans show she feels pain and fear, but somehow doesn't let them control her actions. The Emperor must see this unusual specimen, Vextor decided. Prepare her for transport to Zithra Prime. The journey to Zithra Prime would take 3 months. Diana learned this from Krell, who now visited her cell daily. After 2 weeks of repeated interrogations with little success, Admiral Vextor changed tactics. He granted Diana limited movement privileges within a secure section of the massive ship. The human will be studied in a more natural setting, he announced to his scientists. Perhaps observation will reveal what interrogation could not. Diana was allowed to walk in a large circular area that contained several other alien prisoners. A force field visible as a faint blue line marked the boundary she couldn't cross. Guards watched from raised platforms. On her first day of this new freedom, Diana approached a creature that looked like a tall insect with 6 limbs and large compound eyes. "Hello," she said simply. The alien jerked back in surprise. "You speak to me directly. No human has ever addressed a Mantidian before." "I'm Diana. What's your name?" "We do not use names as you do. I am Worker Drone 42 of Hive Zealous." Diana smiled. "May I call you Zell? It's easier to say." The Mantidian's antennae twitched in what might have been amusement. Acceptable. Over the next few days, Diana met other prisoners, a furry being called a Vorax, 2 liquid-like entities that communicated through color changes, and several more species she couldn't even describe properly. All shared one thing. They were shocked by her willingness to interact with them as equals. "Your kind normally show fear of different forms," Zell explained during one conversation. "Most conquered species fear each other almost as much as they fear the Zithrans." "Fear of differences is wasteful," Diana replied. "Every species has unique knowledge and abilities." These conversations were carefully monitored. Each night, Krell would bring Diana food and ask questions about her interactions. Diana realized this was part of her ongoing assessment, but she answered honestly anyway. "Why did you teach the Vorax your hand gestures today?" Krell asked one evening. "Sam can't speak sounds I can hear, and I wanted to understand him better," Diana explained, using the name she had given the furry alien. "Communication helps build trust." "Trust between prisoners serves no purpose," Krell said, but sounded uncertain. "Everyone needs connection, Krell. Even you." The Zithran looked away quickly. "I must report now." 1 month into the journey, Diana had learned the basics of the Zithran language by listening carefully to the guards. She never revealed this knowledge, but it helped her understand more about her captors. She discovered that despite their powerful technology, the Empire ruled primarily through fear rather than actual strength. Meanwhile on Earth, resistance was growing. Diana didn't know this, but her colleague Commander Alan Boyd had united various military forces under a single command. They had captured a small Zithran scout ship and learned important information about the aliens' physiology. "Their hearing is extremely sensitive," Boyd told his team as they examined the ship's data. "Certain sound frequencies cause them physical pain. We can use this." The team also discovered something crucial: regular transmissions from the flagship mentioning the human specimen being taken to the imperial capital. They have Diana, Boyd realized, and they're afraid of her for some reason. He formed a plan. Using the captured ship's technology, they would follow the flagship to Zithra Prime and rescue Diana. Her knowledge about the aliens could be vital to Earth's survival. Back on the Zithran ship, Diana continued building relationships with both prisoners and some of the lower-caste crew members. Krell had begun sharing small details about Zithran society, revealing cracks in the seemingly perfect empire. Lower castes outnumber ruling castes by thousands to one, Krell explained quietly during one visit, but we are conditioned from birth to believe resistance is impossible. And what do you believe now? Diana asked gently. Krell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought. I am no longer certain. Admiral Vextor watched this exchange on a monitor and turned to his head scientist with concern. The human changes everyone she interacts with. This is dangerous. We arrive at Zithra Prime in 6 weeks. Admiral, the Emperor will know what to do with her. If the Emperor sees her effect on others, he may order immediate termination, Vextor replied. Prepare a full report on her unusual influence. The human's fearlessness spreads like a disease. Diana's first view of Zithra Prime took her breath away. It wasn't a planet, but an enormous space structure that looked like a metal sun with rings extending outward. Thousands of ships moved around it like busy insects. The flagship approached slowly, joining a line of vessels waiting to dock. The center holds the Imperial Palace, Krell explained as they stood by a viewing window. Diana had earned enough trust to be allowed short walks with Krell as her guard. The Emperor rules from the very heart of our civilization. How many beings live here? Diana asked. Over 2 billion on the structure itself. The Empire controls thousands of worlds with trillions of subjects. Diana felt a moment of real fear then. Earth seemed so small in comparison. How could humans fight such an enormous power? But she kept her face calm and asked more questions, gathering information that might help later. When they finally docked, Diana was placed in restraints and led through grand hallways filled with Zithrans of various castes. Many stopped to stare at her. Humans were clearly a novelty here. Admiral Vextor walked ahead, his posture stiff and formal. The Emperor rarely sees specimens personally, he told Diana. Consider this an honor. I'll try to contain my excitement, Diana replied dryly. They entered an enormous round chamber with a high ceiling that showed a view of space. In the center sat a raised platform with what appeared to be a throne. The Zithran sitting there was larger than the others, with 6 arms instead of 4 and skin that had a golden tint. Elaborate markings covered the Emperor's body. The human specimen from Earth, Your Eminence, Vextor announced with a deep bow. Emperor Exalvos leaned forward, all 6 eyes focusing on Diana. Approach. Diana walked forward until guards stopped her about 10 feet from the throne. She stood straight and met the Emperor's gaze directly. You do not bow, the Emperor asked, voice surprisingly soft. On Earth, we only bow to those we choose to honor, Diana replied. A murmur ran through the gathered court officials. The Emperor's mouthparts clicked in what might have been amusement. Admiral Vextor reports you show unusual resilience. You do not fear pain or death like other species. All humans feel fear, Diana said. We just don't let it control us. The Emperor stood and walked down to examine Diana more closely. He was nearly 8 feet tall, towering over her. Humans are a problem, he said. Other species submit when we display our power. They understand their place in the natural order. But your kind fights even when victory is impossible. Perhaps your definition of victory is different from ours, Diana suggested. The Emperor turned to address the court. This is why Earth must be made an example. Their resistance could inspire others. Today, you will all witness the breaking of this human spirit. He clapped 2 of his hands, and the floor opened. A platform rose, holding a cage with a creature inside. It looked like a cross between a wolf and a lizard, with sharp teeth and claws. Its scales were dark red, and it growled when it saw the crowd. The blood hunter senses fear and feeds on it, the Emperor explained. It is most painful when it finds brave prey, as it must work harder to extract the fear. You will face it in combat. Diana looked at the snarling creature, then back at the Emperor. What weapons do I get? Your intelligence, if you have any. Guards removed Diana's restraints and pushed her toward a large circular area where one side of the cage was opening. The blood hunter emerged, sniffing the air. Its head swung toward Diana immediately. Diana's mind raced. If the creature fed on fear, showing none might confuse it. She forced herself to breathe evenly and think clearly. The blood hunter charged. Instead of running, Diana stood perfectly still until the last second, then stepped aside like a matador. The creature, expecting her to flee, couldn't adjust quickly enough and ran past her. The court watched in amazement. The Emperor leaned forward, all 6 eyes narrowed. This was not how these demonstrations usually went. The blood hunter circled back, moving more cautiously now. Diana watched its movements, noting how it balanced on its hind legs. When it leaped at her again, she dropped to the ground and rolled underneath it, causing the creature to land awkwardly. Fascinating, the Emperor murmured. She fights with her mind, not just instinct. The blood hunter seemed confused. It kept sniffing the air, seeking the fear it needed to focus its attack. Diana showed none. The blood hunter's confusion grew as it circled Diana. The creature made several more attacks, each time meeting with Diana's calm evasion rather than panicked flight. The court watched in stunned silence. This was not how these demonstrations usually ended. After 10 minutes of failed attacks, the blood hunter began making strange whimpering sounds. It backed away from Diana, shaking its head as if in pain. What is happening? The Emperor demanded. One of the imperial scientists stepped forward nervously. Your Eminence, the blood hunter needs fear to see its prey clearly. Without fear to sense, it appears to be starving. Diana stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard from exertion, but otherwise appearing almost bored. The Emperor's 6 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Take the creature away, he ordered. Return the human to holding. As guards approached Diana, a commotion erupted at the far end of the throne room. Alarms began to sound throughout the station. A Zithran officer rushed in and bowed quickly before the Emperor. Your Eminence, there is an uprising in the lower levels. Multiple species are involved. Impossible, the Emperor said. No conquered species would dare. The officer looked nervous. They are chanting something in many languages. Our translators say it means, be like the human. Diana fought to hide her surprise. Her presence here had somehow inspired others. Chaos erupted in the throne room as more reports came in. The rebellion was spreading rapidly through the lower levels of the capital. The Emperor shouted orders as his guards rushed to form a protective circle around him. In the confusion, Diana felt a tug on her arm. It was Krell, pulling her toward a side exit. Come quickly, the Zithran whispered. This may be your only chance. Diana followed without question. Krell led her through service corridors where few guards were posted. Most security forces had been sent to handle the uprising. Why are you helping me? Diana asked as they hurried along. Your words made me question everything, Krell replied. The Empire rules through fear, but you showed me there is another way to live. They reached a maintenance area where several other aliens waited. Diana recognized Zell, the Mantidian from the ship, along with representatives from 3 other species. We have little time, said a tall, thin alien with silver skin. The rebellion was planned for months, but your arrival accelerated our timeline. You've been planning this? Diana asked in surprise. The silver alien nodded. Many of us have worked secretly against the Empire for years. But your demonstration in the arena today, it changed everything. Word spread quickly among the servants. I just refused to show fear to a predator, Diana said. Which is exactly what the Empire is, Krell explained. A predator that feeds on fear. You showed everyone that without fear, it loses power. Alarms continued to sound as they moved through the maintenance tunnels. Occasionally they heard sounds of fighting. The rebellion was growing. We need to reach the communication hub, the silver alien said. From there, we can broadcast to all Imperial worlds. As they turned a corner, they came face to face with Admiral Vextor and 4 guards. The Admiral's eyes widened at the sight of Diana. I knew you would be trouble, he said, raising his weapon. Before he could fire, the ceiling above them exploded. Through the smoke and debris, figures in unfamiliar armor dropped into the corridor. They carried weapons that emitted high-pitched sounds. The Zithran guards clutched their heads in pain and collapsed. One of the armored figures removed his helmet. It was a human face, older, with a beard streaked with gray. Diana Shepard, he asked. I'm Commander Alan Boyd. We've come to take you home. Diana stared in amazement. Alan, how did you find me? We captured one of their scout ships and followed the flagship here, he explained quickly. But we need to move fast. This whole station is in chaos. Krell stepped forward. Your friends have good timing, Diana. But leaving is not enough. We must destroy the Empire's control systems while we have this chance. Diana looked at Alan. He's right. This isn't just about rescuing me anymore. We have a chance to free thousands of worlds. Alan nodded grimly. Then we better make it count. What's the plan? Through the broken ceiling, Diana could see stars and the vast structure of Zithra Prime. Somewhere up there, the Emperor was likely planning a brutal response to the uprising. Time was running out. First, Diana said, we need to reach the main broadcast center. And I have an idea how we can use Earth's discovery about Zithran hearing against them. Diana waited until the lights in the corridor dimmed, signaling the night cycle. She counted exactly 300 seconds after the guard patrol passed her door, then used Krell's chip to unlock it. The door slid open silently. The hallway was empty. Diana moved quickly but quietly, following Krell's directions. Turn right at the 3rd junction. Down 2 levels using the maintenance lift. Avoid the main corridors where security cameras would spot her. When she reached Section 5, Diana hesitated. Krell had said others would be waiting. But what if this was a trap? Taking a deep breath, she opened the door. Inside, a small group waited. Krell stood with 4 other beings. 2 were Zithrans of the lower caste, and the others were aliens Diana didn't recognize. One had pale green skin and large eyes, while the other was short with thick fur covering its body. You made it, Krell said, relief evident in his voice. We must hurry. Security will discover your absence soon. The green-skinned alien stepped forward. I am Nyx. My people, the Verdani, have resisted the Empire in secret for generations. Your display in the arena has created an opportunity we cannot waste. What's the plan? Diana asked. We must reach the central broadcast hub, Nyx explained. From there, we can send a message to all worlds under Imperial control. The group moved through narrow maintenance passages, avoiding patrols. Diana noticed that most of the regular security forces were busy elsewhere. There is unrest in the lower levels. The furry alien, who introduced himself as Grex, whispered. Many service workers are refusing orders. Nothing like this has happened in living memory. They reached a junction where they needed to cross a main corridor. Krell peeked around the corner and quickly pulled back. Imperial guards, he whispered. Too many to avoid. Diana thought quickly. We need a distraction. One of the lowercase Zithrans spoke up. I work in environmental systems. I can trigger an atmospheric alert in another section. Do it, Nyx decided. The Zithran used a control panel to send false readings to the central system. Alarms began to sound several corridors away, and the guards ran toward the apparent emergency. The group hurried across the now empty corridor. After navigating through more service tunnels, they reached a heavily secured door. Nyx pulled out a device and attached it to the control panel. "This will take time to bypass," he said. While they waited, Diana asked the question that had been bothering her. "Why now? If you've been resisting for generations, why risk everything today?" Nyx looked at her with those large eyes. "Because of you. Our resistance has always been careful, slow, working in shadows. But when the human who showed no fear faced the Blood Hunter, it changed everything. The story spread through all levels within hours." "I didn't do anything special," Diana insisted. "You showed that their greatest weapon, fear itself, can be defeated," Grex said. "Now thousands who watched or heard are asking, if one human can resist fear, why can't we?" The door slid open, revealing a room filled with complex equipment. Screens showed broadcasts going out to different planets. A few technicians looked up in shock as the group entered. "Secure them," Nyx ordered. Grex and the others quickly subdued the technicians without harming them. Nyx moved to the central console. "From here, we can broadcast to every planet in the Empire simultaneously. But what message will break generations of fear?" Diana stepped forward. "Let me speak to them." As Nyx prepared the system, alarms began blaring throughout the station. A voice announced, "Security breach in broadcast hub. All available forces respond." "They know we're here," Krell said nervously. "We have minutes at most." Diana sat in front of the broadcast equipment. Nyx showed her which button to press to begin transmission. "Ready in 3, 2, 1. Diana pressed the button and looked into the camera. Her face appeared on screens across thousands of worlds. "People of the galaxy," she began calmly. "My name is Diana Shippard from planet Earth. I am speaking to you from the heart of the Empire that has ruled you through fear for generations. Today, I want to tell you something important. Fear is a choice." Behind her, they heard the sound of approaching guards. Time was running out. "The Empire has no power except what you give it through your fear," Diana continued, her voice steady despite the danger. "I am one human, but together, you are billions. Stand up. Look your oppressors in the eye. Show them no fear, and watch their power crumble." The door to the broadcast hub exploded inward. Imperial guards poured through, weapons raised. Imperial guards filled the doorway, weapons aimed at the rebels. Admiral Vextor pushed through his soldiers, his 4 eyes fixed on Diana with rage. "End transmission now," he ordered, "or everyone dies." Diana kept speaking into the camera. "The Empire calls itself all-powerful, but if that were true, would they fear one human woman so much?" Vextor signaled to his guards. They moved forward to seize the rebels. Krell and the others formed a protective circle around Diana, but they were outnumbered. "You have 10 seconds to surrender," Vextor said coldly. Suddenly, a high-pitched sound filled the room. The Zithran guards clutched their heads in pain, dropping their weapons. Admiral Vextor fell to his knees, his face contorted in agony. Commander Alan Boyd and a team of humans in combat gear appeared in a side entrance. They carried devices emitting the painful sound frequency that affected only Zithran physiology. "Diana," Boyd called out, "we track your signal. The whole station is in chaos." Diana nodded gratefully but didn't stop her broadcast. The revolution needed this message. "Look around you," she continued, speaking to the trillions watching across the galaxy. "The Empire's soldiers are falling, not to superior weapons, but to the courage of ordinary people standing together." Boyd's team secured the room while Diana finished her transmission. Reports flooded in from across Zithra Prime and beyond. On hundreds of planets, inspired by Diana's message, people were rising up against their Zithran overlords. "We need to move," Boyd said urgently. "The Emperor has activated the planet killer weapon. It's targeting Earth." Diana's heart sank. "Can we stop it?" Nyx tipped forward. "The weapon control center is 3 levels up, but it will be heavily guarded." "We have to try," Diana said. They moved quickly through the station, Boyd's sound devices clearing their path when they encountered Zithran forces. Many areas were already in rebel control, with freed slaves and lowercase Zithrans working together. When they reached the weapon control center, they found the Emperor himself waiting with his elite guard. Unlike regular soldiers, these guards wore special ear protection. "I underestimated you, human," Emperor Xalvos said. "A mistake I will not repeat. Call off the attack on Earth," Diana demanded. "Your planet will be destroyed as an example to others," the Emperor replied. "Then we will rebuild the Empire, stronger than before." He pressed a button on a console. A large screen showed the planet killer weapon powering up, aimed at the coordinates for Earth. Diana stepped forward, walking directly toward the Emperor. Guards raised their weapons, but the Emperor signaled them to wait. "You still don't understand, do you?" Diana said calmly. "Your empire is already falling. Not because we defeated your weapons, but because we defeated your true power, fear itself." The Emperor's 6 eyes narrowed. "You are just one human. But I'm not alone anymore." As if on cue, alarms sounded throughout the station. The screen showed rebellions erupting on every imperial world. Zithrans of lower castes joined with alien slaves, overwhelming their rulers through sheer numbers. For the first time, Diana saw uncertainty in the Emperor's eyes. "What is this feeling?" he asked, almost to himself. His hands trembled slightly. "It's fear," Diana answered. "Perhaps the first real fear you've ever felt. Now you know what you've inflicted on others for thousands of years." The Emperor looked at the screens showing his empire collapsing, then at Diana standing fearlessly before him. Something in him seemed to break. He slumped onto his throne. "Turn off the weapon," he ordered quietly. With the planet killer deactivated, Diana worked with Boyd, Krell, and representatives from dozens of species to establish a new galactic council. The transition wasn't easy. Centuries of fear and distrust couldn't be erased overnight. But world by world, people began building something new. 6 months later, Diana stood at a podium on Earth, addressing the first meeting of Earth's delegation to the Galactic Council. "We aren't special because we feel no fear," she told the assembled representatives. "Everyone feels fear. We're special because we learn to face our fears and move forward anyway. That's the lesson we can share with our new galactic neighbors." As Diana finished speaking, she looked out at the audience. Among the humans sat Krell, Nyx, Grex, and others who had fought alongside her. Former enemies now worked together as allies. The empire that had ruled through fear for 10,000 years was gone. In its place stood something stronger, a community built on courage and cooperation. And it had all started because one captured Earth woman displayed no fear.